Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Fat Tiger Talk Show. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I want to discuss some observations I have made over my years teaching people about their faith. Now, I started teaching 12 years ago. I grew up in the church because my parents devoted a lot of their love to serving God. And wherever parents go, they're going to take their kids. They're not about to leave them bad little children at home. So they signed me up multiple times for First Communion classes to keep me from running around causing chaos, which is fair. I was a bad little kid. One day I learned how to get on the roof of the church, and I climbed up there every chance I got. Now, I took those classes over and over and over again, heard the same stories over and over again. But as a kid, it doesn't really click what you're learning. I mean, for the longest, I thought Jesus was from Mexico. I'm not kidding you, for real. Like, no BS. All the pictures in the villages, in the deserts, in the mountains, I'd be like, oh, that looks like when we drive to our abuela's house in Mexico. When I would see that map they would put in some of the Bibles, I would think Israel was like somewhere next to San Luis Potosí and like Tamaulipas. And there was a guy in the Grupo Juvenil who looked like Jesus, bro. He even played Jesus during the Passion reenactment our church did throughout Chosewood Park. Like, when you grow up in that environment, you see, of course you're going to believe that because, children are impressionable. It's not till later on that you really you dive deeper into the material and you start realizing, oh, okay, this is a lot different than I thought. You start becoming geographically oriented to the world. They should at least teach you that in school, right? They go over geography and the different nations and whatnot. You go through world studies. So like I said, as a child, you don't really grasp what you're learning, but then after being there so much, you start becoming ingrained in everything else. You start volunteering, you start serving as well. Because I sat in mass one day, and I remember seeing the kids, the altar servers that were walking next to the priest, and I got curious. I was like, I want to do that because I didn't want to just be sitting there. Sometimes it'd be really hot, it'd be really cold because our church was small and we had a lot of people that would show up. So we'd be in the parking lot outside in the freezing cold. And our church took measures to make sure everybody was warm, but we had a massive community. So for me, it was much more that I realized that when you were also serving, you got to be in the air conditioning. You also got to be near the heat. And I was like, oh, okay, I get to knock out multiple birds with one stone. So I asked about it one day after we did our first communion. Then we met this lady, La Señora Josefina. She was so cool. Like, to this day, hey, yo, let me tell you about this lady. Oh my God. Like, I would say for us, there was one day we were having a discussion a couple years back. I hope she's doing all right. But we were having a discussion. She was telling me about this complaint that she had taken all the way up to the Vatican. Like, there was some stuff going on that she was telling me about. I was like, oh, snap. This little old lady is nobody to be messed with. She's a gangster. And I'm thankful, for those kind of people that you encounter, because the community is made up of so many people. And I think that's where a lot of people get this misconception that, the church is a museum of good people. No, these are the same people you see out there in the world, but now they come to this place all united by this faith in something that they can't understand, can't comprehend, can't touch, is intangible to them, but that they know exists. And that they're counting on it because of the presence and the things and the testimonies that they have witnessed and heard and encountered. So, growing up in that environment and being around these people and being influenced and taking those steps to serve and not just be sitting like in the audience, but to be taking an active role in the ceremonies. As I got older, I continued to grow in the church. I really didn't understand my faith until I was more in my teens when a lot of crazy stuff started happening. And I had splintered away from the church as well. I left at, I think, age 16, and it didn't come back for about 5 years. I had turned my back on God. A lot of stuff was going on at that time. And for me, I just felt like, all right, cool. I don't need you. I don't want to be around you. I was already kind of fed up because my parents served a lot, so sometimes we'd be there on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday, and sometimes we'd be there all day. And now, most people would typically go to mass one time a weekend. We would go on Friday, we would go on Saturday. If my parents weren't early, we would go to mass in the middle of the day. Then we still had at 4 p.m. If they had something else in the afternoon, then we had another mass to go to 6. So now that's 3 in a single day. You're hearing the same scriptures, going through the whole thing. And it's not like you sit outside. I took that step back. I got lost. I was lost there at that whole time. And, one thing I've learned after my return back was that a lot of people, especially those who grew up, that your parents took you to church to make sure you got your sacraments. Like you were more forced to be there than you wanted to be there of your own free will. And as a ritual, as everybody's like, okay, we go through all these steps. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to accomplish and have by this age, and yada yada yada. As somebody who grew up in that environment where I was constantly put in the same classes and learning the same information, but not really processing what was going on, and it was hard to understand any of this. Like you just know, okay, that Jesus was a great guy. He performed miracles. He died for us because we were being bad people, and we needed to be shown that we become so despicable at that point that even heaven didn't want to allow us back in, because it's like, if we let you in here, what the hell are you going to do up here? So I look back at all of that, all these experiences that after I returned, and we're talking to the priest, and I couldn't stand him. This guy, we butted heads so badly. He told me one day in an argument that he's like, to me, you will always be that teenager that got in trouble when you were younger, and I'm never gonna let go of that. I can't break that. And I was like, how is this a grown man, like in his 40s and his 50s, or I don't know how, he was old. That how are you gonna sit here and tell me to my face that I'm never gonna change? And you have to start learning things in life, this obnoxiousness that people have, that they refuse to change, but they expect you to be a better person. And so if I'm seeing this in the leadership, if I'm seeing this in people that are supposed to, when you hear about the vows, when you're taught all this stuff, right, you learn the systems, you feel like those students that go to school, they learn the system, they've been indoctrinated, and this been hardwired into them. Then they get in the real world and they realize that the world is not functioning by the rules that they just learned, even though it should be, even though they could put these things in play, and they're met with a lot of resistance along the path. So they become jaded and disheveled in the process, because they're like, this is what I was taught, and this is the way it actually plays out, and therefore I'm playing by a different set of rules where a whole bunch of other worlds overlap with it. So if you're encountering the world here in a house of faith where with people that are still human, and especially those who had taken that vow that said, I have promised and I have vowed that I'm not going to allow the same worldly things that bother everybody else to bother me, that I have to have that extra amount of patience, that extra amount of understanding to comprehend and help a person through their struggles. And even if it's to provide solace or comfort or some kind of wisdom in their times of need, like you see all these systems, right? Like it was the knowledge you see plus the experiences you get in the world that start shaping your perception of what faith is. So these kids see you at, their teachers, and they wonder if you work for the church, and you have to tell them no. And then they ask you sometimes what you do, or, as a kid, you ask them like, what brought you to be here? Because, as a kid, I couldn't understand that. I just knew people were suffering, but they wouldn't go into debt with it too much, because they figured, you're a child, you don't understand it. I'm going to tell you these things, but you're not going to relate. So I'm like, if your human struggles as you as a person right here in front of me, you don't think I comprehend, then what makes you think that, again, Jesus as an adult and the things that he went through, how am I going to understand that? The various saints or the people throughout the scriptures and their struggles, how am I supposed to understand that if it's a culture and terminology that I don't fully understand? It became a challenge, because at least you when you break it down, when you take away a lot of the illusion of it, and when I mean illusion, it's like, we don't focus on the name, you don't focus on the region, you don't focus on the culture, you focus on the individual, the person. What is the message it is trying to teach you, and how do you pass that on? Because when I decided to become a teacher, of course I was first set up for 2 years as an assistant. I didn't get my own class until later on, because I taught for about 3 years, and then I took a step back because I was in the fire department at the time. I was working out, I got hurt, and so in the recovery of all that, it was just necessary to heal yourself, because if you can't manage your own personal life, it's going to interfere with everything else, right? So I went in there thinking, I make the naive young adult mistake all the time of thinking that I know everything, right? And then I come into it, and you're faced with real issues, because you've learned these stories, you repeated them over and over, you can regurgitate this information like nothing, right? But then how do you get somebody to understand it? How can you explain it to this person to such a degree that they can hear you and understand the message being transmitted? 'Cause there's differences when you can actually get what's happening. You know, like kids are impressionable. They'll hear the stories, they understand it, they know the triumph over good or evil. But then you get older, and it's especially like when you get like middle school to high school kids, and they start becoming more jaded. It's because again, we grow up indoctrinated in these systems where you learn the system in and out, and you're told that everybody has to play by these rules. Then you get in the real world and you realize that there are people who are playing a whole different set of rules, and they're getting away with things, and they're getting results that weren't promised or that aren't talked about, or there are people who are operating in shady ways, and yet you're still being asked to do the right thing, and ended up being looking less successful or having less results of those people who are cheating the system and getting away with it. Like, you know, how again, you're seeing the same community out there in the world, and these kids are looking at people and saying, you're all a bunch of hypocrites because you're telling me don't do this. You're telling me not to do the things that are listed in the 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. And yet you're out here doing these messed up things. And then they look at you and says, how can you tell me about salvation when you yourself are living and drowning in sin? You get that they're understanding it because they're calling you out. They're calling out the hypocrisy. And then there you're faced with another challenge in which you're like, well, how does this apply to them and not you? It's like, it applies to both of us. I'm an example of why you shouldn't fuck up, like why you shouldn't be out here doing all these crazy things. I'm like, I did a lot of crazy things during that time that I got separated from the church, that I turned my back because of a number of reasons that I'm not going to get into. Like I just knew, I felt like I was fed up because I'd been here all this time, and I felt like I was missing out on things in the real world because I didn't know how to interact with other people. My church was also on the opposite side of town, so it's not like there were people that I went to school with. I would always hear the stories of my friends, and they'd be in this class, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could relate. Or if I had a crush on a girl, there's no way I was gonna see her. Like, you know, it sucked. Like your social life is built around that community of people, but when you're so far outside of it too, you don't really feel like you belong. So you stack on top of the fact that you know the stories and you kind of understand them, that you don't fully comprehend them. And then it's not until like later on, like what you find after most people have gone, received their sacraments, and they leave the church because of they've already quote unquote fulfilled their obligations, that it's a moment of crisis that brings them back. You know, rare are the people who come back because they've been blessed so abundantly that they give the most praises to the Most High. But then you find out how many people come back because they got married, they completed that sacrament of matrimony, but then there was infidelity that came in there. There was jealousy that was or abuse that was stemming into category of the point of no coming back, right? And there are people who are like, you know what, fine, we're you know, I've witnessed it so many times from people giving their testimonies at church where they would say that, oh yeah, like the men would be like, my wife caught me cheating and she told me that if I didn't turn to God, that she would leave me and take the kids, and I just couldn't afford to lose her. You know, I grew up around a lot of these people, and you would think that, oh man, look, they love God so much that they're here and they're singing. And then you find out later on, you get older, when you learn all the lore, when you're told all the tea and shit, like, oh my God, you start looking at it so differently. And it goes back to what I was saying of the whole, that church is a hospital of the broken. And you realize, again, these are the same people out there. So as a person who has, your faith is continuously shaped. It's an active thing. It can't just be one thing. Oh, it's just the truth. It's something that they say is put to a test. Because what does it really mean to be put to a test? That means that it encounters something that can interact with it, that can influence it, that can manipulate it, that can reinforce it or destroy it. Right? Like when we're presented with we have a truth that we know, and we go out there and we think that this is the only truth that exists. But in reality, there are so many aspects and perception of it that what you know now is not the truth. Like, imagine how I felt as a kid when I learned that Jesus wasn't actually from Mexico, that Israel was out there in the Middle East, and worse was that I was looking at this region where it was all happening and there was war happening. And I'm like, oh my God, wouldn't Jesus be ashamed of the fact that there's so much war happening in that area that he is from? And then, you're told in later books that, Jesus will return. Like, growing up in the heart of the Bible Belt, you see these messages that people have alongside of the road where they're weaponizing Jesus, where they're like, do you know, Drew? They give you these intimidating ass messages. You're seeing that, again, you're seeing what's in your community. You're seeing what's out there. You see the very people that are Bible thumping out there and weaponizing this scripture. And it goes against a lot of the teachings that you've been shown, because you're like, are these people actually reading the same books? I understand that there's so many different variations and then translations. Go to the store, go anywhere there's multiple copies of a Bible, and then look up the same scriptures, and I guarantee you're not going to read them the same way. Now imagine if that is happening in the modern day. This has happened over hundreds of years at this point. So yeah, there's going to be teachings that are going to be skewed because of language, because language is so important. I am such a big stickler for that. I like learning why we say the things we did. How did language come to be? Why is it this particular sound, this series of letters, this system is designed to express this particular idea or concept or feeling or sensation or whatever like that? Why is it that we chose these words? Why this? Because it matters. It matters so much what we say, because the word is so powerful, because it can build, it can destroy. You know, what is it? The most toughest words to say in the English language is "I'm sorry." Those two very simple words, but how much it costs people to say it in a moment is sincerity. You know, I was teaching my class recently, and that's why I wanted to get on this topic today, because in my years of teaching and trying to take this knowledge and reshape it and mold it in such a way that even a child could understand it, that even a teenager could accept it after having their faith tested, after going out in the world and learning that all the things that we have taught them are not being followed, that these systems that we've told them to have blind faith in have been tested and sometimes failed them because they don't have a full perception of what it could be and how difficult that is. You know, as a teacher going into this and knowing that you're helping shape somebody's future, because they're gonna listen to what you're gonna say. They're gonna pay attention to what you do and what you fail to do, and they're gonna use that, and they're gonna remember that in the future, and that may influence their decision. That if they decide to come to church on their own accord, of their own free will, not because their parents, their spouse, their partner, their friends, nobody influenced, because they actually wanted to. They wanted to understand and read and sit at the table. You know, you get the ones that come back because they're happy, but then you'll get the ones that are also come back because shit has hit the fan. Things have gotten bad and they have nowhere else to turn to. And finally, that little echo, that little voice that's always, it's not even so little anymore. It's just we get so used to the noise around us so much that we learn how to drown out even the loudest noises. If you don't believe that, walk down the street and hear how obnoxiously some people have their headphones all the way up, that you can feel the brr, brr of the bass coming off of it. And you're like, dang, man. When I hear that walking down the street or when I'm working and I look at people, I'm like, man, you know those hearing cells aren't coming back. You know, if we can drown out voices like that in our everyday life, what do you think happens when we drown out God's voice? And it's when that tragedy breaks past all these walls, these barriers, this cocoon that we've put ourselves into, and now we're vulnerable and exposed, and we're trying to we turn to all our options here in the human world and realize, you know what? I can't count on any of this. And looking up at the sky, and they're wondering, God, where are you? And he's like, I've been here the entire time. You know, he gave us a gift of free will, but that's a gift and a curse at the same time, because you have to choose. You have to choose to love something. Like some people say, it happens naturally. It's still a choice. It's still deciding that, oh, I know I'm feeling these things and I want to direct this towards it. And we're given that choice. And, you know, we stumble in life. God already knows everything you're about to do, right? So if he already knows what you're doing, he's just waiting. He's talking to you the entire time. But how many times are we talking to somebody we get ignored to our faces? Now imagine, like when we talk about faith, that we trusting in this when we hear it, and can we feel that tug in our conscience when we're doing something we know, maybe I should stop right now, maybe I should pull back a little bit, maybe I shouldn't say the thing I'm about to say, or maybe I shouldn't respond to this call or this text, or I know I'm about to go fight with somebody and I'd rather just take the high road or and leave, and even though I might take a hit to reputation or whatever, that you avoid creating and expanding this hatred and this negativity out there in the world. You know, like when you come back to the community, because like I said, there's a lot of people who leave, and then there's some people who never left. There's some people who stay here. There's some people who come and they understand that this is a dedicated space in which we want to worship. That yes, we could do all, the world is going to find its way inside of here, but this is a dedicated and reserved space for this, for God, for prayer, for contemplation, for meditation, for like analysis, for an examination of consciousness. Because, you know, as Catholics, we believe in the reconciliation and penance, the sacrament, where, you know, you go in, confess your sins, and you're not confessing it to a priest, but it's supposed to be a representation of God. where we're like, you know what, it stays between you and the priest. You have to sincerely apologize for the things that are going on, and your penance is also based on like what you should go out there to do to remedy it. You know, whether it's internal work you're doing yourself, or maybe a pursuit of restitution in the world, who knows? But you know, you got those people that it's not until tragedy comes into their life that they read the scriptures and they understand that these people that are in there weren't perfect. They weren't models. They were just regular, average, everyday people that got into their own nonsense, that committed a lot of crap as well, because they're only human. But God still called them and asked them to do things. And some of them ran, some of them helped. But those who did help, who heard it, are helping other people by opening up their hearts, by making them realize what they have in their life, by giving gratitude for the things that have been, the things that are, and the things that will be, for having trust and a conscience to realize that, you know, it's our duty to spread love and to stop hate and to help each other when we can, and to disregard all these other systems that tell us to treat each other negatively or with inferiority when we're just brothers and sisters. You know, we exist on this planet. We should help each other. We shouldn't be sitting here trying to tear each other down. It's ridiculous. And so now I'm in these classrooms and I'm teaching anything from whether they're kids to teenagers and even to adults. You know, how do we teach people about faith? Who am I? Who the hell do I think I am to walk in here and think I'm an expert in this? And I'm not. I'm a guy who has made a ton of mistakes. I have even died in that process. But guess what? God still loves me, and he's redeemed me. And if he didn't love me, I wouldn't be able to talk. I wouldn't be able to walk. I'd be wheelchair bound right now. I'd probably be in a vegetative state. I probably would have died I would have died a long time ago. But that's not the point. Like, despite all of that, despite all of my mistakes and even the things that I've learned, and like, there's plenty of scripture that goes into that, how as much as we think that we are not worthy of redemption, we are, because we can't fuck up that bad that God turns his back on us. I mean, you could try. I know there are people out there they're gonna test that. That's not you, bro. You got to answer for you. I can't answer for you. I'm not trying to control you or tell you how to live your life. I'm asking you to be mindful. And like I say in every show, give a fuck about something. Care about something. Give of yourself. Love is a choice, and we have to actively participate in it. You don't think it is because we keep expecting it to fall into certain categories, and that's our flaw as humanity. We keep trying to put things in boxes, and that's another reason why it's tough to kind of teach people about faith, because we've been taught how to categorize information and experiences that we have, to put them in boxes and brackets and say that this information fits with this and this observation fits with this, so this justifies and rationalizes this narrative here. Man. if that's what you're looking for, we're humans begging for signs, and sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. But it's like I tell my kids, you know, when we pray, it's a conversation. So all right, you've said what you had to say. Now, are you listening to the response you're getting back? You know, and your experience is going to be so much different than mine. You know, God has manifested himself in so many phrases, as big and as bountiful as the world that we live on, and the fact that we have seen that there is life outside of just this planet, but we can't reach it. Now, you imagine how much more vast is this world that we can't access, but that we know that God created. So can you not believe that you think that you're going to go to the same place as everybody else? Not everybody knows what's on the other side. There are some of us who know because we've experienced it, and I don't recommend anybody have to experience it the way I did. But when you get those truths and you come back and you tell people, like, hey, man, like, yeah, I know there's a lot of expectations. I know there's a lot of things, a lot of information to process. Some stuff you might not get all the way, but you have a whole lifetime to do it. It's the thing of, what do you believe right now? Who do you trust in right now? Who do you give thanks to? Or even if, like, most people can say, oh, I'm agnostic or I'm atheist. Okay. You know, like, I read a while ago that said that the atheist is the real proof of God's existence, because if this person turns out to be morally good and for no other reason than just because they want to be, or not because they're worried about what's going to happen in judgment, if they might die and what could happen to their spirit, if they even believe in a spirit at all. Like, no, they know that, like, okay, it proves that they're there are things we just know are inherently good and inherently bad. That we weren't just created to be forces of destruction. That there are things that exist as cycles. Things begin, things have a life, things end, whether however brief or however long. In our terms of understanding in our existence, how we use our lives as a metric for measurement. But this world is so much more complicated and vast than that. So we're humans trying to understand the complexity of these mysteries. And we gather here and we discuss it from people that have, from accounts and testimonies, for people that have said, I have had encounters with the divine. I have had divine intervention happen, and this is what happened to me. So it's not a I believe, it's I know. And other people trying to learn will say, I want to get past the part where I believe. I want to know as well. And removing all these illusions in our lives, all these boxes where we're trying to rationalize information and just letting it manifest by living it. And what does that really mean? What does that really mean? In the focus of all these classes, all these years of teaching people, they look at you with this sense of like, okay, I learned why we're doing, but why are we doing this? And the only thing I can really tell people is to learn how to love each other better, to learn how to care about each other, to see all the different ways that we can take our life force and resources and talents and share them with the world and manifest them and create things in the world and evolve them. To also be mindful of how they affect other people around us, because there are people who monumentally messed up. And even if you make mistakes too, that you're not just condemned to an eternal life of suffering. You know, that you too are worthy of redemption. You can't fuck up that bad that God's going to turn his back on you. It's us who do it. It's us who have the ego and the pride. And we're only human, so we're not going to completely understand divine entity the way that we want to. It's hubris and delusions of grandeur that we have, that we think we could. But we could still feel it. We could still be a recipient of God's love. And I think no matter what doctrines, what rules and stuff I teach out there, I think the biggest thing I'm just trying to aim for is, how do I teach each other, all these kids and these people, how to recognize love and grow it? Because that is true divinity inside us. How do we recognize another life and how it's doing and what we could do to improve it when it's feeling low? How do we do it? So how do we help each other make the world a brighter place when all we see is darkness and can't navigate through it? How do I help you on your journey? How do I help you reach your destination? How can I orient you? It's by recognizing that you are them and that they are you. This is life. We all carry this life. We all carry this divine spark. We can create. Creation is not a dead thing. It's a living thing. We are part of living creation. So what do you choose to create out there? I hope I'm creating memories. I'm hoping I'm creating friendships, and I'm creating knowledge or moments that stick in a person's heart, where they can count on it, where they, even if it's just that small echo, that when they're trying to listen for God's voice and they hear an echo of something, that they're just like, I thought about that class, and I thought about what you said, and I thought about in that moment somebody pissed me off, and it finally came to pass, and I didn't get it when I was a kid, but then now I understand as an adult what you were trying to say, and now I'm here too because I want to help other people understand that too. I don't know where my journey is going to take me teaching. All I know is that I like being there and helping people navigate this, because it's like I tell my kids, there's a lot of this stuff, it's not going to be interesting. You're so used to all this stuff. It's how we present things. Yes, how we present things. Anything can be interesting, and if you learn how to present it. But I was like, don't count on it from a lot of these people here. But that's also why you have an opportunity to be here as well, because you can contribute to that. You can be a part of that. You can give your talents to make it interesting, because these stories in the Bible are absolutely wild, man. You look at some of the stuff and you're like, wow. Like if you want to do a Game of Thrones style for a book, like the Book of Kings is so bloody, man. Oh my God. But That's what I'm saying. You can give those talents. There are things that you're good at that you can manifest, and then you become part of this community because you see other people there. You have a reason. Again, you're all united by faith. So like if those people are trying to live that love, they know that to honor love and trust and friendship and respect and dignity, to be merciful and forgiving, to exude grace by living it, by practicing temperance and patience. Tolerance is a tough thing, especially when people abuse of it. But I think out here we can be beautiful human beings in the kindness that we demonstrate and we grow in the world. All this other stuff that we keep focusing on, it's just a distraction. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. We focus so much time in it. You don't want to get to the end of your life and then realize how much it didn't really matter in the end. So we're constantly learning every day. How do I learn to love? How can my love manifest? For me, for the people around me, for the world, for the things I care about, for the things you give a fuck about. So that's what I want to leave you with that. Just give a fuck about something. Care about it. Understand that by participating in that, you are participating in the divine experience already. You are life. You are an active part of creation. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's a beautiful thing. So I think I'm going to end it on that note today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you all have a blessed one out there. And stay tuned for the next episode.